We finally get a voice, and by that I mean your character in Forza Horizon 5 finally gets a voice. Why is this so important, you ask? Because it will help the story feel so much deeper and richer when your character is able to interact with the NPCs in the game, even if it is just in cutscenes. Don't underestimate how much this will help the feeling of the story and progression in Forza Horizon 5, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll agree with me. But we are going to start off by briefly mentioning that options for creating your custom character are vastly improved, along with the option to choose your custom voice. And that's enough about character customization, at least for now, because I want to talk about Horizon stories. There are going to be even more Horizon stories in Forza Horizon 5 than there were in Forza Horizon 4, both new ones and a few returning storylines and characters as well. And for those unaware, Horizon stories are like mini missions with a theme kind of, and on top of this, the stories will now move around the map as you progress through them. In Forza Horizon 4, you started everyone at the same spot, so this is a very welcome change that should help keep the gameplay fresh as you move around the map. You can unlock new Horizon stories by opening up the different festival outposts as you progress through the main storyline, and their difficulty is based on your overall difficulty settings. They don't get harder as you progress, so you can make each one harder or easier as you want. It all comes back to what they've said many times before: play your way. One of the Horizon stories we got a look at was V10, which is a continuation of the movie stunt driver story from Forza Horizon 4. It looks pretty much exactly like the kind of stuff you'll remember from the Forza Horizon 4 stories, but you should have a lot more freedom. For example, you may remember from FH4 stories that certain chapters would require you to race on the road, and if you went off, a timer would start counting down the time you had to get back on the road before you failed. That has now been increased dramatically, at least in what we saw. I am not a huge fan of this because it's so ridiculously high that it encourages you not to drive on the road, which is great. I'm all for going as the crow flies in Forza Horizon games, but why do you need a timer at all if it's so excessively long that there's no risk? Use it in challenges where it makes sense to stay on the road, but why do you need a timer at all in an instance like this? The only place it makes sense to me is if it's trying to encourage you to take a shortcut that you have just enough time to make if you do it right, which they alluded to a little bit, but why put in a timer at all if it's gonna give you a minute? You could practically complete the challenge in that amount of time. Okay, tangent over. The other Horizon story we got a look at is Born Fast, and this story feels very Need for Speed-esque. Each chapter is against a new NPC drivatar with their own personality and driving style that you have to take on in a head-to-head street race, but with a twist. And that is by way of another new element they've added into stories: alternate paths of progressing through the chapters that will shape the next few chapters that you do. So for example, when you complete a chapter, you may have a choice of what chapter to do next, both of which will progress the story to the next step. You can ultimately go back and do them all for all the completionists out there, but the example they showed is that you can choose to help one of your next opponents out or go to the race and just try and beat them. But if you choose to help them out, they will ask you to let them win and kind of give you this backstory. But you can ultimately still choose to win, just betray them and win anyway, or you can let them win. Both will progress the story. There won't always be alternate chapters opening up, but it does sound like it should be a fairly common option, and I think this is going to turn out to be pretty cool. We also got a sneak peek at the first festival playlist we'll be getting when Forza Horizon 5 launches, the theme of which will be Welcome to Mexico, and it included the surprise announcement that the Delorean is back in the game and will be one of the rewards in the festival playlist, so that is very cool indeed. Also, you now earn points as you complete the different season events instead of the percentage of progression that was used before. This should make it easier to track your progress and make it a bit more straightforward. And on top of already announcing that there will be a Christmas theme down the line, they also mentioned that new things and events and spectacles will show up across the map as the festival playlist changes. I really love this idea, and even though they kind of barely discussed it in the live stream, I think there is a ton of potential here that they will most likely take advantage of. Think of kind of those like ridiculous Fortnite events, but like toned down and more of like Forza Horizon style. I mean, I don't even play Fortnite, but this sounds pretty dope to me. But long story short, the map will evolve in some ways based on the festival playlist events and should help keep the map like fresh and new as we move forward in time. This also ties in with our first look inside the stadium in-game, and it is absolutely huge. They said this would be a prime spot for things to show up in like free roam outside of all the crazy stuff you'll be able to do in Event Lab, so think like kind of events and spectacles that they talked about showing up on the map tied to the festival playlist. And to top it all off, the playable character you create actually has dialogue, obviously, in a Forza Horizon game with what is shaping up to be a very robust story experience that you will be able to experience your way and just get lost in what is the fantastic fantasy world of Forza Horizon 5. And if you want to know about Forza Horizon 5 online, watch this video.